Hi there. I'm Jeremy Brown, manager of the Franconia Road branch of Community Title Network. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you about deed fraud, what it is, how it works, and how you can protect yourself from financial loss. Deed fraud occurs when someone forges a deed and records it in the county land records to make it look like they now own the property. Once the official government records show the new owner, that person can then sell the property, take out a mortgage against it, or even rent it out to a tenant. Now, obviously, this scam works best with vacant properties, but really it can happen to anyone. To illustrate that point, let's take a look at some examples that have made the headlines in recent years. Last month, KTLA News in Los Angeles shared the story of a woman who was fighting to clear her title of a mortgage that she never signed for. Fraudsters used a fake ID to impersonate the woman and to trick a notary into acknowledging a deed. They then recorded a fake release for her mortgage and then took out a mortgage of their own of $475,000 and ran off with the money. In 2018, ABC News in North Texas interviewed this guy, Arnoldo Ortiz, who pled guilty to 25 counts of deed fraud, which is impressive in its own right, but that's actually not why he made the news. They wanted to interview him because he allegedly committed deed fraud again while in prison. Yes, it's really that easy to commit deed fraud. And here's a local example. In 2014, the Virginian Pilot reported that a man tried to sell his 2 lots in Sandbridge, that's just south of Virginia Beach, only to discover that someone else had already sold them the year before. The fraudster had impersonated the owner in phone and email communications with the listing agent and the title company, and had requested a mail-away closing since he lived outside the area. He then forged the settlement documents using a fake notary stamp. And finally, here's a news story that I wish had made national headlines when it was written back in 2008. The Daily News in New York sought to expose the vulnerabilities in the way title docs are recorded by stealing the Empire State Building. They didn't even try to hide what they were doing. They used a well-known property. Famous bank robber Willie Sutton was the notary. The witness was Fay Ray, as in 1933 King Kong swatting airplanes at the top of the Empire State Building, Fay Ray. And the buyer's name was literally Stolen Properties spelled backwards. And yet, even with all those breadcrumbs, it still went through, because the clerk of court does not check the validity of a deed. As long as it meets certain form requirements, and the check for the recording fee is correct, they will take a deed from literally anyone off the street and admit it to record. Now you're probably thinking, but Jeremy, isn't it the settlement agent's job to keep this sort of thing from happening? Well, sort of, but we're fighting blind in some cases. You see, for deeds signed at closing, we can verify the signer's identity by reviewing their photo ID at the time of signing. We check their physical appearance and their signature on the deed to make sure they're consistent with what is shown on the ID. However, we may not be able to spot a fake ID. Worse still, if the fraud was committed on a deed that's already been recorded in the land records, not one that's being signed in our presence, we have no way of knowing that it's a fake. We simply have no means of communication with prior owners, and therefore no way of verifying the validity of their signature. We have no way of knowing if it was forged, if the signer of that previous deed was recently deceased, if they were a minor child, mentally incapacitated, or for some other reason not able to sign for themselves. To a large extent, we just have to go on faith that it's valid. So how do you protect yourself? You can detect evidence of deed fraud by keeping an eye on your credit report and watching out for suspicious notices in the mail or monthly statements that suddenly stop unexpectedly. You can also keep an eye on your tax record periodically to make sure that the owner's name and mailing address have not changed. There are even monitoring services that you can subscribe to for a monthly fee that will watch all these things for you. But frankly, if you see any of these things, it's probably already too late. The only real way to protect your financial investment is to buy owner's title insurance when you purchase the property. If it turns out that the current or a prior deed was fraudulent, you'll probably still lose the property. After all, the rightful owner did not sell it to you. However, you would be able to file a claim on your title insurance policy to get your money back so you can purchase a different property. It is important to note there are 2 different types of owner's title insurance, standard and enhanced. Standard owners will protect you from fraudulent deeds already recorded, or if it turns out that your seller is a fake. Enhanced owners goes a big step farther and protects you in the event that someone forges your signature on a future deed or mortgage to steal your home's equity. Deed fraud is just one of the many things that owner's title insurance covers. For additional information about title insurance coverage and cost, or if you need help locating a copy of your title insurance policy for your own home, feel free to reach out to me or another branch manager here with Community Title Network. We'd be glad to help you out. Till then, have a great day.